How's everybody doing this morning?
Great.
I'm Brian Akhurst, and I'm introducing Steve Rack. Sorry.
That's good.
Steve Rack is the owner of Southwest Landscape Management, a company specializing in commercial and residential landscape maintenance and snow services. His responsibilities include overseeing day-to-day operations of Southwest Landscape Management, securing new customers, enhancement sales, contract renewals, as well as long-term planning and growth projections. In 2009, Steve and Jeff Rack started Rack Consulting, LLC, which focused on small to mid-sized landscape companies by helping them get to the next level in sales through identifying and implementing systems and procedures that will help them grow. Steve attended, you're going to have to help me on this one.
Cuyahoga?
Caughnawaga?
Oh, Cuyahoga Community.
Cuyahoga Community College, where he studied music theory and business management. He served as president of the Ohio Landscape Association, has written for several publications, and spoke at various trade shows and seminars within the landscape and snow service industries. This session is being recorded, so please silent your cell phones. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Steve. Thank you.
Great. All right, nothing like little Guns N' Roses in the morning, right?
Saturday morning wake up.
I figured it's the last day, you know, so yeah, walk and stay out of that. So I figured maybe I'd do something to wake you guys up a little bit, you know. It's 3 days of seminars. How's everybody enjoying the show?
Good.
It's awesome. I've been a member of SIMA for 5 years, and last year was my first SIMA symposium that I attended, and I'll tell you what, I had the most awesome time. Great people, you know, I went out to dinner with people I didn't even know. It was very, very cool. I've been a member of Planet for like 20 years, so I've been coming to these seminars for 20 some years, just not in the snow and ice management part of it. Generally, when I come to these, I'm out there. I'm not up here. So I am not a professional public speaker, but I am a guy who runs a landscape company, snow company, just like you guys. For some crazy reason, my brother and I decided to get into this public speaking and helping people out type of thing. So that's what I'm doing. Yes?
I don't know if your mic's.
Oh, that would help. Is that better? Hello? There we go. I'm not going to repeat all that. Okay. All right. You know, I have a quick question. Have you ever driven by a property and seen your competitors' trucks all over it and wonder how in the heck did they get that property? How about like you've seen a property that you know is managed by a property management company and your competitors' trucks are all over that one and you're like, how do those idiots get that property? I mean, I know I do it, we all do it, right? Well, there's no one answer, there's no silver bullet. However, there are some principles and some concepts that maybe we can do to enhance our ability to get some contracts and to get some of those types of contacts with the property management companies, and that's what we're going to talk about today. In addition to that, I'm going to define I have 3 different types of property management companies that we're going to talk about today. So that's what we're going to do. I'll give you a quick history. I'm not going to go real long here, but I forgot his name, the guy who introduced me. Anyway, I am the owner of Southwest Landscape Management. We've been in business 20 years. It was started by my father, Steve Sr., just kind of like everybody else. He worked for United Airlines and got laid off in his mid-40s. So he decided to, hey, you know, I'm going to start a landscape business. I was in my 20s. I was a musician, as you can tell by the little intro there. I love music. I'm a music freak. So, of course, being a musician, unless you really get to that top level, you don't make a ton of money. So I started working with him. So we kind of started the business together. Fast forward 20 years, you know, we have 20 employees. We maintain over 1,000 cluster homes and a lot of HOAs. That's the crux of our business. I don't know how we got into that, but that's been the main part of our business. So for 20 years I've been dealing with this type of customer, and so I've learned a lot over those 20 years on what makes them tick and what ticks them off and all that type of stuff. Our focus is commercial landscape maintenance and snow and ice services. About 10 years ago we got into the snow business. That's our facility. I just like to show that to people. So people say, Steve, how do you deal with all those homeowners associations and management companies you have? And I always say, you've got to have a sense of humor. You cannot take yourself too seriously, or you're not going to be able to deal with these guys, because they come at you from all directions. So if you're not the type of person that has an open mind or can at least laugh at yourself once in a while and try not to take life too seriously, you're going to have problems dealing with property managers and HOAs. I can tell you that right now. This is really cool, and I was at Disney a couple of years back with my wife and my little son. He's 9 years old, and we were walking down the street, and I'm this big music freak, so I hear this band playing, and I'm dragging my kid. I'm like, we got to find the band. We got to find the band. And I thought they were like playing like, outside little restaurant or something. And they got this thing set up in the street with this truck, Mulch, Sweat, and Shears Bandscaping. And I'm just like, how cool is that? I mean, it just resonated with me. So I use it in all my talks. I think it's pretty cool. And they were really good, by the way. I hear a lot of these same questions too. Why? Okay, people are asked. As a matter of fact, we had, I was at a round table, I don't know if anybody was there with me, but for the breakfast of, well, it's not the breakfast at Champs, but whatever the breakfast thing we have here, the snack and chat. Okay, I was there with some people, and these questions are still coming up. Why in the world do you want to work with so many cranky homeowners? I hear that. My friends are like, I can't deal with this stuff. I can't take all the phone calls. It's like you have 1,000 bosses. That's true sometimes. These property managers are always throwing us under the bus for every little problem. Or the national companies are just a waste of time. All I do is give them bids and never get to work. This is true to an extent, but it's not true 100% of the time. Yeah, there's some bad property management companies. There's some bad HOAs that you don't want to deal with. There are property managers that I will not deal with. If they're not going to pay the bill, then heck with them. I'm not going to do the work for them. So yeah, there are bad and good, but I think there's a lot more good than we give them credit for. And I'm saying because I know what makes them tick and what ticks them off. And because one property manager may hold the key to millions of dollars worth of work. Okay, I'll tell you about the first property manager I ever worked for. 15 years ago, I was working in the field. I did the maintenance for about 12 years. Rolling in the field, just probably like everybody else in this room has. You start with a mower and you're killing yourself out there for a long time until you finally realize you can't do it anymore if you want to grow your company. So we had just picked up it was a 300 home association, and it was divided into 3 phases, phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. Each phase had about 100 homes. So we had phase 1, and I had 2 competitors in there that had phase 2 and phase 3. And the HOA, the homeowners association, they're the ones who we signed the contract with, but halfway through the season they hired a property management company. And this guy came in and they said, he's going to take over all 3 phases and you guys are going to talk to him because we don't want to deal with all these different landscape companies and stuff. So it was a Thursday at noon, I was eating lunch, and this property manager cruises up in his Lexus, gets out, and he's this tough guy, not a big burly tough guy, just a, hey, you know what, I don't chase contractors around, and I'm telling you right now, if you don't return my phone calls and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, oh great, now I got to deal with this guy. So the way it worked was every Thursday at noon, he would show up in his car, and he'd say, Steve, I'd get in the car, we'd drive around, we'd pull up to Mr. Jones's house. Mr. Jones would come out and say, yeah, landscapers didn't pick up that tree in the backyard, or yeah, this is happening, or that's happening. Every Thursday. So I had to start eating lunch at 11:30 because this guy's coming at noon. I didn't have time to eat lunch. So I learned a lot, though, by driving around with him. I got to kind of be friends with the guy. He wasn't that bad. He just wanted to set the tone. But my competitors in phase 2 and phase 3, they were like, I'm not coming here when he's here. They would come early in the morning and get out of there before noon, or they'd come after noon. So I was really the only one building a relationship with this guy. So after a while, I thought, well, if I have to deal with him, why not just try and get all 3 phases? And they said, no, we're not going to, we want the competition between the landscape companies. And I said, well, you know, we could do a better job if we had all 3 phases. You know, it would be consistent, you'd have one company to deal with. So it took us about 2 years, but we ended up with all 3 phases of that property. And we had that property for about 8 years until the property manager lost it, and then we lost it too. But I am still working with him now as we speak, and he's gone from like 3 people in his company to about 20. He's got, when I get these bid packages from him like this. So, yeah, I had to eat a little crow the first time I met him, but now we're buddies. I mean, you know, he's a friend of mine, but he can still be tough. I mean, he's a tough but fair property manager. And if you do good work for them, they can sell for you. They will sell for you. There's no question, if you have a property with a property management company and they get the property next door and you're doing a great job for them, and they have to get 3 or 4 bids for that property, they're still going to try to push yours a little bit farther over that table. If you've been doing a good job for them, you know what they want. On the homeowner association end of it, they talk to each other and they refer people. It's just like, does anybody have uniforms in here? Do you guys, yeah. We use a company called Cintas. Now in Cleveland Market, Cintas does a great job, so I refer them to my friends, you know. Same thing with the homeowners associations. They don't really know our industry, so they refer each other. They walk around, a lot of times one HOA is right next to the other. National companies give you more at-bats by providing more bid opportunities. You know, I hear a lot of negative stuff about the national companies, and I'm not here to debate that. However, I can tell you my experience with the national company that I'm working with has been nothing but good. Yes, they throw me a ton of RFPs, and I have to run out there and kill myself trying to get bids for these guys. But my opinion, and does anybody know who Mike Rory is? Okay, he's the owner of Groundmasters, a company that, he went to $30 million, sold his company to Brickman about 5 years ago. Huge success story. Well, he came into my company about 2 weeks ago, actually, and I spent a day and a half with him, and he kind of just, I mean, my brain is still spinning from this guy. He's so amazing. But one of the things I asked him, I said, hey, when you're growing Groundmasters, I said, you were 47 when you sold that company. You grew it from the time you were 20 or whatever, whenever you started it. His dad didn't start it, he started it. I said, what did you do? What are some of the things you did? He said, Steve, you got to get more at-bats when you're bidding. You got to have more of those bid opportunities. These national companies give you more at-bats. Yes, you're running around like crazy. You might get a bid. Mike over there sends me an RFP for 15 targets on Monday, and he says, I need them back by Wednesday. I'm like, are you nuts? But you know what? We do what we can. We try to get them, you know. I do a lot of that, but on the other end of it, when you do get it, sometimes you get a home run. We picked up some great Windstream properties. We've done Sheetz gas stations, plazas with these guys. And if you're not getting the work, call them up and ask them why. You know, that's the bottom line. Just give them a call and say, hey, you know what? You guys keep sending me these RFPs. Why am I not getting the work? Well, maybe your price is too high, or maybe, you know, maybe they didn't even realize that, you know, you're equipped to do that kind of work. So you just got to talk to them. I had an interview with the property manager. I had to redo this PowerPoint because it was on a PC and I changed it over to a Mac. So as I was redoing it, one of my property manager guys called me up. And I said, he's like, what are you doing? I said, I'm doing this talk for the Snow and Ice Management Conference. And he said, well, what are you talking about? And I said, I'm talking about property managers. I said, can I ask you some questions? He said, yeah, fine, go for it. He's been doing this a long time. So I said, what do you look for when deciding what company you're going to use? And this is such a great answer. He said, we look for the safe bet. And I said, well, what do you mean? He says, we look at price, we look at what the company's done for us in the past, and we look for someone who will make us look good, the safe bet. So you need to become that, the safe bet for these guys. You're the guy that returns the phone calls even though you don't want to deal with it because you know he's calling because you knocked over a mailbox. You're the guy that makes sure that you're on the property when he's out there. Those are the safe bets. You're the guy that has a reasonable price, maybe not the lowest price, but a competitive price. So those are all the things that they look for. We're going to talk about the 3 types of property managers that I deal with, and I think this kind of encompasses all of them. The HOA board, the property management company, and the national companies, and we'll go through and define those and talk a little bit about the differences. They're all different animals. How many of you deal with one or all of these types of properties? 3. Okay. So you all know what I'm talking about here. So hopefully I can give you some insight. Maybe you're not working with an HOA board, or maybe you're not working with a national company or something. So I would like to give you some insight on the differences here. The HOA board is definitely a more personal relationship, and I like that one the best, because these are people that actually live in the community. You're going to their house to have a meeting with them. A lot of times whoever's in charge is the poor soul who went to the meeting, raised his hand and complained about something, and then got elected to be the president. You know, that's what they say. I'm like, how did you get this job? And then they usually hate it because they get yelled at all the time. Usually you only have 1 or 2 direct contacts. They're managed by a board of volunteer trustees, and you got to remember there are volunteers. So I always try to talk to them and find out what level of, some people are retired, so they have all the time in the world and they want you to call them back and come out and walk the property every week, and then other people are busy. I've had some board members say, listen, Steve, if I don't call you, please don't call me, because I travel, I'm busy, you know, I got this job by default. We have to be cognizant of what it is that they want, the level of contact that they want. The bad part is, and we were talking about this at the round table the other morning, the board changes every 3 years, or every couple, I don't know, in my area it's like 3-year terms, and you all know if you're dealing with these people, you might have like the guy that his Aunt Hilda got out of the car on Christmas Eve and slipped and fell. So now this guy got on the board because he wants the best darn snowplow company in the world plowing his association. And he picked you because you're the best. So you got that, and you're in with this guy, and everything's great. His term ends, and the next guy, he doesn't care about the snow or the landscaping. He cares about, I'm going to get a new slide for the pool. So all of a sudden he's like, I don't care about the landscaping, I don't care about the snow. So you got to get to be friends with that guy real quick and try and explain to him, hey, you know what? We've been here for a long time, we know the property. You know, I know you want to get a new slide for the pool, but you know what, this guy's Aunt Hilda fell, you don't want that, you don't want lawsuits. So those are the types of things that, it gets very frustrating when the board changes. I've had properties for like 10 or 15 years and went through tons of different board people. It's amazing, and I'm sure we could sit here and talk about stories of all the different board members we've dealt with. The bid opportunity is only one property normally, so that's it. You know, they call your office or you got that opportunity, but it's just that one property. The property management company is definitely more of a business relationship. That's the local company that you deal with. There may be multiple direct contacts. Like I said, that property manager I deal with, now he's got 20 people in his office, so sometimes I've got the customer service guy calling me, sometimes I got the owner calling me. You know, I've got different people. So you have to kind of adapt to that. They work for the HOA or facility, and they're the liaison between them and us, basically. They manage various HOAs, office buildings, apartment complexes, and other businesses. But what's nice about them is there's usually multiple bid opportunities. I work with maybe half a dozen property management companies in Cleveland, and the amount of work that the potential work that I get from them is absolutely amazing, because they like us, we're doing a good job, so they're constantly sending us bid opportunities. And in September, October, when those maintenance bids come in, I get so busy I can't even think straight, because I'm getting 5 proposal packages from this guy, and 10 from this guy, and 6 from this guy. So it's a good way, if you don't have a salesman at your company selling for you, get in with some property managers and you can have those multiple bid opportunities. Just remember that when they call and they're complaining. The national companies are very formal and impersonal. The national company I work with, Affiliated Grounds, they're in Erie, PA, and I'm in Cleveland, so I don't ever get to see those guys. They're a relatively new breed in my market. I don't know, does anybody deal with that in the national companies where they're sending out bid proposals? Not too many. All right, yeah, a couple. It's new, so what I like about dealing with those guys is, at least in the Cleveland area, the way it is the bigger places, the Targets, the Walmarts, the banks, they're now looking at these national companies, and I know none of us likes to hear that, but it's a reality. So I figure, why not team up with one of those companies? They've got the access. That still keeps me in the game. But if they call me individually, and it's not one of the things that they're giving, sure, I'm going to go out to a Walmart if I haven't gotten it from Mike. But you have the opportunity to bid numerous properties. And you have so many bid opportunities you really can't keep up with them. And that's the truth. I mean, sometimes it just gets out of control. So how do you get noticed? It's just like any other type of relationship in our business. How do we get noticed? Do great work and have a great reputation. That's really number one. And I mean, I'm preaching to the choir, I'm sure, on that one. You guys all know that. But ask your current customers for referrals. It's a very easy thing to do, and it's kind of hard to do. I just asked a customer for a referral the other day, but prior to that, it's been forever. It's like we're so busy, that we don't bother asking for referrals. So it's something that you can do, especially if you got an HOA and there's 3 other condo associations right next door. They probably know each other, or they know somebody over there, so ask for referrals. Ask a management company to give you an opportunity on their most difficult property. That actually works. I had a salesman working for me several years ago, and this guy was like the cold call king. He was calling everybody. Well, there was this one company that managed all these apartment complexes. And the guy's name was Drew, who worked for me, and Drew just kept calling, and they were just, blowing him off. So finally he said, do you have a property that you're just having a major bad time with? That's just not working out with the landscaper, they're not doing a good job. Would you let us just do that for one season to see how that works? And so finally they gave us one of their apartments, and we did it for a couple of years, and it worked. So it's a good approach. Now with the internet, we can Google property management companies. I have my office manager working on that as we speak, and start marketing to them, send them a letter, make sure they know what your territory is. And you can email the national companies and give them your territory. So if you look up the national companies online or whatever, find AgMag, or I know that there's some other ones out there, email them and say, listen, I work in these areas. I know you guys are bidding in these areas. They might not know it. I have to tell my property managers all the time, I work in Westlake, but they're throwing me bid opportunities for Strongsville, which is where most of my work is. Oh, I didn't know you worked in Westlake. So it's like you have to keep telling them. And if you pick up a new market, hey, I just got a big job in Avon. Okay, that's another market in the Cleveland area. Make sure you let all your property managers know that now you're working in Avon, because they tend to send you bid proposals only for the areas that they know, because they want the safe bet. They don't want you to have to drive across town, because then if they call you to blow off a patio that you missed, they know that, hey, you know what? It's going to take them a lot longer to get over there. They're probably not going to do it. So I want to get the other guy who always works in this part of town, because I know he can throw a guy out there to blow the patio off. But you got to make sure that you tell them that you're working in those markets. Oops. Technology. All right, so what is it? What makes them tick? What are they looking for? And I boiled it down to like 4 things. And it's really a lot. It's not just property management companies, but it's everything. It's any kind of sales. And that's communication, relationships, excellent service, and price. Those are what they're looking for.
Is that how you rank them in that order?
Probably not. No, everybody knows. What would be first?
Price.
Mm-hmm. Isn't that ridiculous? But it is what it is. But you're absolutely right. Yeah, I didn't really think of the order, but maybe I need to switch that around a little bit. But yeah, he's absolutely right. So we'll talk about communication first. Remember to communicate and pay attention to detail. This is from Richard Branson. Has anybody ever heard of Richard Branson? He's like the European Donald Trump. Virgin Records, Virgin Airlines, the guy's pretty phenomenal. He has a book called Business Stripped Bare. He talks about how he grew his companies and built them up. It's a very good book. And he can boil things down into simplistic terms, and I thought that this was a really good quote. Communication is so important. It's probably the #1 thing. So let's talk about that a little bit. Communication, what makes them tick? What are they looking for? We need to, first of all, figure out their mode of communication and adapt to it. I'm 47. Okay, so I remember the rotary phone. And I grew up with the phone. Texting to me is not even something I'm good at. I don't know how these teenage kids, they can text and walk down the street at the same time. I can't do that. But I do have property managers that text me, or it's email, or it's, you know, the phone. But we have to figure out what it is, and you can't say, well, you know what, I'm just not going to text. All right, you want to close that little possible income stream off, that's fine, but all your competitors are probably texting. Or maybe not all of them, but the younger guys that are coming up that you're competing with are texting. I've got property managers that are in their 20s and 30s, and they're texting. What can I can't really tell them I'm not going to respond to your text. You can still batch your calls and your emails and you know, we don't have to respond immediately to every single text that they send us. If you're at your kid's birthday party, you know, you just put it on hold. When you're done, you text them later. You know, batch that stuff. Don't try to do it all at once. Return phone calls promptly. It's kind of ridiculous. I mean, everybody in here is professional, but I still hear that people aren't returning phone calls. We just picked up a 244 unit condo association. We were right in the middle, it was right in the middle of two other properties that we're working for, and the same property manager had all three. And one of our competitors was doing this one right in the middle, and they had beautiful property, 244 units, huge. So Len is the guy's name. The property manager calls me up and says, hey Steve, I want you to, we're going to fire the landscapers that are doing this property. It's not happening. And this is mid-season, this is this year. So, or I'm sorry, last year. So I said, all right, let's meet out there. Let's, you know, I'd always want to meet these, whoever they are, the property manager on the property, take a walk through and find out what the problems are so that we know, you know, what to do, what to pay attention to. So we walked around and I said, well, what is it? What's the biggest issue that you're having here? He says, these guys won't call me back. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. And this company's, I mean, they've been in business as long as we have. And they're not calling people, they're going to lose a 244 unit property because they don't call the guy back. Unbelievable, but it still happens, so I have to say it. You know, I'm sure 90% of the people or 99% of the people in this room know this, but you know what? If you're putting these guys off, they are not going to take it. They're going to fire you. So we picked up the snow, the maintenance, the mulch, the FERT, everything. And I was thrilled. Respond to the emails and text messages, we talked about that. Have the occasional face-to-face meeting. I know that everybody's really busy and a lot of the property managers are busy, but I like to ask them, hey, when are you going to be in the area? You know, when are you going to be out there? Because if you're going to be out there Wednesday, maybe I can meet you out there and call them up and see if you can walk the property with them. A company e-zine, does anybody have a company e-zine that they send out? No? All right, we'll talk about that. And then you can pop a little Facebook page up or LinkedIn, Twitter. What was his name? There was a guy that was talking about social media before. He had some really good, it was yesterday, I forgot his name. But anyway, he had some great stuff on this Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter stuff. It's all good stuff. But I'm going to talk about the e-zine real quick. It used to be called your company newsletter. We used to send out a paper newsletter to our customers. But now there's a website called Constant Contact where you can go online and set up an e-zine, and I'll show you our e-zine in a second. It's simple. If I can do it, you can do it, because I am not a big computer guy. But they have these different templates, and all you have to do is punch in your content and throw some pictures in there, and you got an instant e-zine that you can blast out to all your customers. It's really cool. You can do promotions. You can, you know, hey, it's time for snow contracts this year. Let's start thinking about that. We do it bi-monthly. And yes, it takes some time, so it is kind of a headache. But on the other end of it, it's a good way. It pops up in their email box, so if nothing else, they see your name every couple of weeks. Or I'm sorry, I do it every other month. You can do it as much as you want. This is what ours looks like. We call it the perfect cut. This was from February. And you know, I wonder if people are like reading these things. So if you look at the left-hand side, it says, Steve will be speaking at the Great Big Home and Garden Expo Saturday, February 12th. I did a little talk, so I said, let's put this in there. You know, maybe some of our customers will want to come. But I never know. So I went and did this talk, and I'm setting up my stuff, and I look out, and one of the presidents of the associations that I work with, his wife and a couple other people are with them. And they sit down, and I'm thinking, maybe he just, you know, showed up at the show and was walking through and decided to sit down and listen to my talk, because there was about this many people that's in this room. So when I got done, I went up to him. I said, "Hey, Mr. Solmensberger, how you doing?" I said, "I appreciate you, you know, sitting down and listening to me." He goes, "No," he goes, "I saw it on your e-zine." He said, "You know, I wanted to come out and hear you talk." So they do read them sometimes. So it's just another way of communicating with your customers. It does go to communication, and it's a little, but that picture you can just, there's a little box there, you can just take that picture, put it right in there. It has another little box underneath that says, you know, type your text in here. It's very easy to do. And my office manager helps me with it sometimes. So what don't they like? What ticks them off? And I can tell you, making them wait for anything, even though it's unrealistic, really gets on their nerves. Especially like bids, things like that. If you're making them wait for that kind of stuff, you're probably, if you're sending your bid in a week late and you haven't called and at least discussed it with them, you're probably not even in the running, so don't bother. We just talked about callbacks and texting and stuff. You got to remember, some of these guys that are in their 20s and 30s, they grew up with the internet. They're used to going online and boom, man, they get what they want immediately. You know, we used to go to the encyclopedia or the library. You know, these guys are used to just getting, hey, I want to know, when are they going to put that tree in? When are they going to mulch those beds? And we've become a society that's insane with this 24/7 communication that's going on. And in the snow world, you guys all know that with snow plowing, I mean, you have to be on call every minute of every day, every time there's an event. Not having a primary contact person or an account manager on site, that is also, especially as far as the communication on the administrative level, they need somebody to be able to talk to either about the billing or about the contract or about the general stuff that's going on with that property. Then there's the field, which we're going to talk about in a minute. So they need a primary contact person. If they have 5 different contact people, it's going to be confusing to them. They're going to get frustrated. It's too many layers, too many levels. We already talked about not returning phone calls, ignoring emails. If at all possible, avoid face-to-face contact. You know, if you're going through your property like this, like hoping not to see anybody, you probably have some problems. I know, we do that once in a while. So as far as relationships, let's talk about that for a minute. Attending the homeowners meetings. Those of you that do work for homeowners, do you do that? Do you attend the meetings? Anybody? Good. I know, you know, they can get crazy and there's people yelling at each other and there's all kinds of stuff going on. But you do learn a lot by attending those meetings. You get to meet the future board members, probably are at those meetings. So if you get to go to those meetings and sit in on those meetings and maybe give a little presentation, then they already have a face to the name. And when you have a face to the name, then that makes a big difference on how they perceive you. Because a lot of times they perceive us as these dirty landscape guys or these grumpy snowplow guys, you know, that don't really, you know, care about anything. But really when they meet you and see that you actually are a decent person, you know, and there's a face with the company, it's a good thing. And not only that, but you get to meet some of the other people in the neighborhood. You get to hear what are the real concerns here. You know, are they ticked off that we didn't weed whack behind their house and we're up front cutting the beds out every week with a weed whacker? You know, hey, when I drive down the street, it looks great. Well, Mrs. Jones is ticked off because we didn't do her backyard. So those are the types of things that we need, that I think by attending the HOA meetings is it's a very good thing to do. Property walkthroughs are phenomenal on the lands. Yes?
I would say that since we started doing the at least once a year meeting with the HOAs, that has helped us out dramatically. Because we were losing the HOAs. Every time that board member changed over every 2 or 3 years, you seem like you're out. But since we got that face-to-face contact, it's made a drastic difference. I didn't see too many hands go up. So you're right.
It's huge. You know, I know it's hard. I know it's hard, especially if you're like the owner, operator, and everything else like some of us are. It's hard to get out there and go to these meetings, especially there at night. I mean, who wants to go at night and listen to a bunch of people complain? I mean, it's not my favorite thing to do. I'd rather be at my kid's baseball game. But you know what? Sometimes you have to make that. The thing is at least the associations I work, they only have these meetings like once. They only have the big meeting once a year in my area. So you're only talking, you know, however many HOAs that you have, you know, one time a year, and you're in and you're out.
And I just tell them that I want the first 15 to 30 minutes of the meeting, so they're gone.
Yeah, if you can get that, he said, try to get the first 15, 20 minutes of the meeting. That's really good. A lot of times they'll do that. You know, hey Steve, we're going to let you come up, do a little talk, and then you're out of here in 15 minutes, and then we're going to talk about all this other stuff. So that's absolutely true. make an unannounced appearance on the property. I like to drive through, get my clipboard, walk around. People ask me, what are you doing out there? Because they don't, so not everybody knows you, you know, but if you're walking around with a clipboard in their backyard and they come out, then you can say, hey, I'm Steve, I'm with the landscape company. I'm just checking things out. You know, how are things doing? Plus it gets you out. I mean, who doesn't want to be outside? I'm in the office now and I do the sales and stuff, so I don't do any of the work outside anymore. So I take this opportunity 2 days a week to go drive through my properties. I love it. Hey, I get to be outside and walk around. And I get to meet people, so I try and commingle that with my meetings. So you're not just driving around, you know, listening to Glenn Beck or whoever you listen to. Take a personal interest in their specific issues and concerns, and that's what we were talking about going to those meetings. It makes, you get an insight, because us being in this industry, and most people in this room have probably been in this, we're veterans, right? We've been doing it a long time. We have a perception of what the customer really wants. But then sometimes, have you ever gone on a walkthrough with someone and they're complaining about something and you're just going, huh? Why do they care about that? But they care about it. So you have to adapt and kind of move things around a little bit to give them what they want. And that's why taking a specific interest in their personal needs is important. And make sure, again, that they know your territory. And we talked about that. What ticks them off after the sale? Just ignore everything. And you know, you can't say this doesn't happen. And I'll give you an example. I just picked up a property about 2 weeks ago. So this is mid-season. They just fired the landscaper that had the property. It was a property management company. They called me up and said, hey Steve, you know, you're in the area, it was like a 22-unit HOA. He said, can you take this over? And I said, well, what's going on? And this was 2 weeks ago. He said, they haven't done a spring cleanup. They haven't cut out the beds. They've only cut like 2 times over there. And he's like, they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. And they're just ignoring me. So I took a look at our schedule and I said, yeah, I think we can do it. You know, I think we can get that in there. Well, I'm a hero to him, okay, now that we took this over. We just did the mulch actually yesterday and Thursday, so the mulching's done now. So they're going to be really happy with us. When it comes snowplow contract time, we're going to be #1 on their list. And he already told me, he said, if you do a good job, he goes, they're probably going to use you for snow and everything else and you'll have the job next year. So this still happens too. How could people ignore, how could you get a job and then ignore it? You spend so much time and effort trying to get that job and then you ignore it? I don't get it. Lying to them or don't follow through on a promise. When I was talking to my property manager buddy, he said another thing that he looks for is a company that if you say you're going to take out that tree or you say you're going to mulch that bed and then he drives through 2 days later and finds out it's not done, then all of a sudden a red flag goes up and he doesn't trust you anymore. And when he doesn't trust you, he doesn't want to have to get in his car and drive across town every time he asks you a question. I mean, I'm dealing with Affiliated Grounds Management. They're in Erie. They can't come to Cleveland to make sure I did what I said I'm going to do. I got to send them pictures, which I still have to send you those pictures. But so you don't want to tell them something that you're going to do and then not do it, and then they show up and see it. Man, they get really upset. And taking them for granted after you're working with them for a while, and I get the same way, man. This guy I've been working with for 15 years, he pushes my buttons sometimes. And I feel like telling him, you know what, go take a hike. But you gotta remember, you know what, I want to say that to him, but then look at all these checks that come in every month, and look at all the properties that I get from these guys. You know, so it's a love-hate type thing. And you can get comfortable and say, you know what, I don't need his business. But I know a lot of guys who say that, I'm not working with that guy. I'm not working with that guy. Well, why aren't you, if you're not working with him because he's a jerk, is he being a jerk because you're not doing what he wants you to do? Now, if he's not paying the bills and he's not communicating with you, then yeah, get rid of him, don't work with him. There's no reason to work with someone like that. But if they're fair, if they say that, you know what, there's grass all over the back porch of this lady's house, you guys have missed it the last 3 weeks, and then you drive out there and see there's grass in the back, you cannot get upset with them for that. And you can't just say, you know what, I'm sick of him calling me all the time. Well, he's calling you because you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. Those are the questions you need to ask yourself. Is he calling and being a jerk, or is he calling because really we didn't do what we said we were going to do, or we didn't do what's in the contract, so now he's got to call us? Because what's a property manager's job essentially? To get yelled at, right? All the live long day. they get these phone calls, you know, oh my neighbor's dog crapped in my yard, or the landscaper missed my property, or the snowplower didn't, I love this one, the snowplower didn't do my driveway. And you know there was a car in the driveway, right? It's like, and you want to, and sometimes I do, I'm like, you know what, there's probably a car in the driveway, but we'll go take care of it. So they're getting these calls constantly. I would not want that job. So they're going to be a little cranky sometimes. So we have to get used to dealing with that. Don't take them for granted. So I got another question I asked my property manager buddy. Who really makes the decision when a property manager is involved? And essentially it is the homeowners association or the people on the board, the facility manager really makes that decision, but the property manager has influence. And that's something that they're hiring that property manager for his expertise. So they may say get 5 bids or 10 bids or however many crazy bids on a property, but that property manager can still influence their decision. And they will influence their decision based on, because they want the safe bet. So if you want to be that safe bet, they have the influence with these HOAs with the homeowners. That's why they hired them. So whether that sounds fair or not, it is what it is. That's what they're going to do. They're going to influence them and push them a little bit. Hey, you know what? Southwest, they're right here. Go take a look at this property down the street they're doing. They're really good. I think that would probably be the best bet for you guys. Well, this one's cheaper. I know, but you know what? Southwest always calls me back. And you know, they do come out and make sure that they blow all the patios off and do everything we ask them to do. So I really think that Southwest is the better company. So that's what they do. So service. What makes them tick on service? Have a contact person, foreman, route manager on site. I'm sure most of you do that, but it's so important for them. My foremen are like, they're like rock stars. They have groupies. If I take them from one property and put them on, and I think they all do good. They all do a great job. But I can take Eddie and put him on John's property, and I got John's homeowner calling me, or the HOA, what happened to John? Well, I had to, you know, the route got moved around. No, we want John back. I'm like, Eddie does just, I don't care, we want John back. You know, so it's so important to have that. Again, this goes to relationships and service. But it's like if you go to a favorite restaurant or a favorite store, you know, you go there again and again and again because you get the same kind of service. You might know the person who waits on you. You might know the person who sells you your clothes. So you've become, you have that contact person that you can walk in and go up to and say, hey, this is what I'm looking for, or this is what I need, or this is what I want. It's the same thing with our mowers and our plows. We don't walk into, we got a place by us that I take a mower in there, and 2 weeks later they give it back to me. So we don't work with them at all, but we still have these Exmark mowers, which I love, but the guy who gives us really good service sells Skaggs. So we're moving everything over to Skaggs again. And because I can take a thing up there, a mower up there, my guys will sit there, and in a half hour the guy fixes it and we're back on the road, or he'll get it to me the next day, give me a loaner. This other company, I mean, 2 weeks for a lawnmower? I mean, it's a pump, okay? I would think you'd be able to change that a lot quicker than 2 weeks. So, same crew every week, same day every week. That's huge. Especially when you're doing HOAs, because most of these people in these places are elderly. They're home from work, they're looking out the window. When's the landscaper going to get here? You're like the event when you come in there. You know? I mean, they got something to look at. You know? So, and they do, you know? So they expect that. And if you don't come on that day, then they start calling the property manager up. Hey, where's the landscapers? Well, Monday was a holiday, so they're a day behind. But they look for you. Immediately respond to complaints and damages, then fix them. I don't argue with people about damages. I know there's probably, you know, we could debate that fact all day long. And I'm not going to go out there and spend $1,000 without at least looking at it and making sure that we did do it, and if I have to get my insurance company. But I'm talking small things, $50 or $100. I'm just going to fix it. If that property manager is giving me $250,000 worth of work, and he calls me because we ran over a $5 hose with our mower, I'm just going to say, get a new hose, send me the bill. Why do we want to argue with that? That's craziness. You know, just fix it. Because you know what happens, what's really good about that is if you take care of all this stuff and you're honest with them, And even if it's not you, you know, like there's sometimes they blame everything on the landscapers, no matter what it is. But when you really, really know that you didn't do it, you can say, listen, I'm sorry, we did not do that one. And 90% of the time, they'll say, okay, Steve, because I pay for 90% of the other stuff. So when you really get to that point where, hey, this wasn't me, you don't really have to argue with them then, because they believe you, because you've been paying for things for years. So sometimes I do have to get into that conversation with my property managers. You know, well, I don't even want to go into it, but there's so many little things that can happen on a job, as you all know, with snow plowing and with maintenance. Things that are actually not our fault. You know, a little drain cap that's sticking up in the driveway and your plow pulls it. Well, you know, how are we supposed to know? I mean, how are our drivers going to know? You know, what are we supposed to do? Lift our plow up so that there's like a little inch, you know, and then they're going to complain that we didn't get the snow all the way off their driveway. So we have those types of things. Do what you say you will do. That's a real simple one. And then trained employees rock. So you got to remember, trained employees are still, they're the ones that are out there 90% of the time. We don't go out there 90% of the time. Our employees are out there. They're the face of the company. So we have to build that culture so that our employees know that these property managers, these HOAs, these homeowners are paying the bills, and we can't be complaining about them, even though we want to. You know, if your guy calls and say your foreman calls you up and says, hey, you know, this guy's screaming at me, you can't say, yeah, he's an idiot. Even though you want to. You know, you have to say, listen, try and be decent with them. If there's a major problem, have them call the office. You know, remember these guys, and I tell my employees this when we're in our meetings, these people pay our bills. You know, yeah, you want to get, they're yelling at the uniform, they're not yelling at you. So you have to train your employees. So stellar service results from stellar training. This is another good book. It's called Lessons in Excellence from Charlie Trotter. He owns a restaurant in Chicago somewhere that's supposedly just the best restaurant in the world, or he's won tons of awards. Anyway, I thought that was a very good quote. I just want to go into training real quick because I don't know if everybody does this, or I just think this is a really cool idea. We ask our vendors to help us with training. Like if whoever sells us our plows or our mowers, I ask them, can you guys come and give us a class? Or give my guys a class? Or maybe, do you have somebody coming in from SCAG or someone from BOSS that's going to be in the area that maybe would come and talk to my employees for a while and teach them, you know, hey, where should I grease the plow? Or, you know, when should I make sure the cutting edge is down to where it needs to be replaced? Those types of things coming from a professional, someone who's actually works for the company. So about 2 years ago, this guy here came in from SCAG, and we use the H2B program, so we have some Hispanic workers in the summertime, and he speaks Spanish. So he came in from SCAG and gave a half-day class to my Spanish guys about, you know, mower safety, how to run the mowers. He brought a bunch of mowers out. It was really, really cool. And it didn't cost us anything. You know, he was in the area. I called my dealer who sells me the mowers, and, you know, he says, yeah, I got this guy coming in. Plus, we do have all the training videos from CIMA and from Planet in English and Spanish. So if you don't have those already, that's a great way to go too. You get safety videos and training videos. CIMA has a really good plow package video that I show all my employees. So use your vendors for training. A lot of this stuff doesn't cost a whole lot, especially when you're a smaller company like we are. I don't have a full-time training person. You know, it's kind of like me, and I try and make it as automated as possible so that when someone new comes in, you know, we give them the manual, you know, we do an orientation, you know, those types of things. Another thing, as far as, again, this touchy-feely relationship that your employees have with the customers, give them the opportunity to fix problems. So I kind of stole this from the Ritz-Carlton because my brother, my younger brother used to work there years ago, and they have a policy that says, you know, if a customer complains about something, the employees can spend up to $100 to fix that complaint without going to management. So I do the same thing with my company. I tell my guys, if you run over something in the middle of the night, or, you know, the shovelers hit a dog, how many times do they get those dog chains wrapped up in the snow blowers? You know, I know you could sit here and say, I'm going to charge a homeowner for my snowblower, but you know what I do? I say, just go out and buy another one, give it to them, give me the receipt, let's get it over with. I don't want to hear about their dog chain. I don't want to hear about their, that stuff to me is minutia. It's like, why do we want to deal with that? Give your foreman the opportunity. I say $50 to $100, you don't have to call me. Just go get it, bring in the receipt. You know, they hit a little flower planter or something. Just go fix it and just give me the receipt and we'll get it over with. Because then that person's going to call the property management company. They're going to call me, and we're going to go back and forth and round and waste a bunch of time. And then at the end of the day, we're probably going to pay for it anyway, right? So let your employees, give them that opportunity to fix the problems while they're on site. And I won't talk about lean, but I'm telling you, lean management is a very good tool. If you're not doing that, that's something you probably want to look into. It's awesome. But I'm not, that's not what I'm here to talk about. I know they did have some seminars on that earlier in the week. All right, on the service end, did I just do this? Oops. All right, you know what? I just did something that I don't know how to get out of. There you go. Okay. All right, so service ticks them off, no contact person on site. Showing up on different days with different people, giving them a totally different experience all the time. That goes for snow plowing as well. People do look out their windows. Hey, there was a red truck on my property. Yeah, that was 4 in the morning. Well, usually you guys have white trucks. Well, what are you doing up at 4 in the morning? I mean, are you nuts or what? But they do, don't they? I mean, do you get those calls sometimes? Well, yeah, there was a red truck because one of my subs was sick, so I got another truck out there. I mean, I cannot believe sometimes that people are calling up about that type of thing, but they're watching. They feel comfortable when they see those same guys pull up in the middle of a storm because we're emergency people, you know. So when there's a different crew or a different experience out there, they get nervous. All of a sudden the property manager's phone starts ringing. Your crew not owning the job, that goes without saying. We talked about that a little bit. You know, my foreman at my company, I give them their routes and that's it. I don't get in their way. They go out and they do the work. I go out 2 days a week and drive through the properties and make sure they look the way I want them to look. 90% of the time they do. Hopefully soon I will be getting an account manager to do that. So if anybody knows anybody, let me know. And having subs that don't care. How many guys have you, or how many of you deal with subs and you've had those bad subs that just have torn up? We just started using subs about 3-4 years ago. We did it all in-house prior to that. And so I was really not knowing my thing about subs at all. So I hired this asphalt company and they came in, I paid for more garage doors. I learned a really, really hard lesson that year. Now we have a contract with our subs. If they damage it, you know, they got to pay for. I learned real quick, and I almost lost that job because of that. But luckily, I mean, I had to pay for garage doors, and I learned all about garage door repair. So, and I wasn't out checking. You know, it was just a big mistake. And some of you are probably veterans in here, and you've been through that already. But if you're a newer company and you're just starting to use subs, man, you got to make sure that they're going to, and have someone managing those subs, because on that particular property I had nobody managing those subs from my company. All right, so we're going to talk about price, which is everybody's favorite topic. Having a competitive price, what makes them tick? Having a competitive price with excellent service. Knowing your numbers, because we have to know our numbers. We have to know what our numbers are so that we can be as lean as we can with our price, because everybody knows that the prices keep going down, especially on maintenance. Maintenance is just ridiculous anymore, commercial maintenance. Snow plowing is getting that way in Cleveland, but I've heard in other markets it's already going, you know, south price-wise. But realizing that our industry is becoming more price-driven, I mean, that's the way it is, so we've got to figure out a way to combat that. We've really got to look at our numbers. I'm a real numbers freak. I constantly look at my numbers. There's probably a way that we can tweak our numbers a little bit so that we can get a little more lean on pricing. And the customer knows this and expects competitive pricing. So now it's like they expect a low price and they expect a good service on top of it all. And we just have to figure out a way to be competitive, and again, having that relationship with the property management company and having that history with them, your price can be a little bit higher then, because they know that you're a good company. Again, the HOA, same thing. if you're going to bid the property next door and this lady's referring you, she's going to say good things about you. Maybe the guy next door's price is a lot cheaper, but he doesn't call him back. You know, he doesn't show up when it snows. You know, those types of things. So you're building this machine, hopefully, this reputation for your property managers that you're dealing with and your HOAs that you're dealing with, so that when it comes time for pricing, yeah, you could be a little bit higher. You're not going to be the highest. Sometimes they'll throw away the high, throw away the low, and go with the 3 in the middle. But you don't have to be the lowest if you do all this work up to this point when you're starting to bid again. You know, because now you know them, they know you. And if you got a couple of years under your belt doing the right thing for people, then they're going to be more apt to send you more bids. They're going to be more apt to, hey, you know what? I know the price is a little higher. I got that with that property I just took over 2 weeks ago. He said, your price is higher. I said, Andy, I'm going to be there. You know, I'm going to be there for these people. You got to tell them that. And he said, all right, I'll go tell them. And they went with us. I did have to tweak it a little bit. I mean, I don't know about you, but it's a negotiation process anymore. In my market, when I send a price out, I know sometimes I have to negotiate that price. And that's just become my business. You know, I'm just doing that now. I know that there's going to be and I know how low I can go and how high I can go. But there's a lot of times I can't, anyway, in my company, I can't just say that's the price, that's it, and there's no moving, because then I'm talking myself out of a lot of work. So there's various ways to negotiate, but we're not talking about that. What ticks them off on price? Not giving value with your service. Not giving written estimates for add-ons and enhancements. We've run into that where they say, hey, could you put in some trees and just bill me? And then I send them the bill and they're like, what, $500? Well, what did you think it was going to be? You know, and then all of a sudden you're going back and forth on that. So we always send them an estimate when we have to do it, when they ask us to do a job, no matter what it is. Because that way at least they understand what the price is. It used to be in the old days, you know, 15 years ago, before all this price stuff started happening, a property manager would just call me up and say, hey Steve, you know what, find all the dead shrubs in the property and replace them and send me a bill. Do you guys remember those days? I mean, that used to be great. We had a corporate headquarters that we do in Cleveland. It's a world headquarters. And they wanted us to do, like, have my enhancement crew on that property once a week for 8 hours, 3 guys, and do whatever we can. Plant plants, cut out beds, just make the place look beautiful. And if they weren't there, I'd get a phone call and it was all T&M work. And they'd just say, send me the bill. Now, are you kidding me? I can't even, I mean, we have to get approval for 2 yards of mulch over there now, you know, because of all this price craziness. Not being lean and passing costs on to the customer. Again, we talked about lean management. So trying to be a little more lean. If you're passing costs on to the customer that can be eliminated by just running a little more lean, that's gonna cost you a little bit. And being the cheapest and then sucking really bad. And you know, it does, it makes them mad. And they'll fire you. You know, if you come in really cheap and then you can't do the work, what good is it, right? They're eventually, they're gonna get you out of there. So, all right, overall experience. What are some just little things that you can do to kind of, if you've done all this other stuff, what's an overall experience that you can do to maybe push your company a little bit above the other guys? Because there is a lot of competition out there. One thing that we've done a couple of times is have an open house, and I've got a little picture of that coming up here. That's a really cool thing. We'll talk about that in a minute. Take lunch or take cookies out. You know, on the holidays, I took cookies and candy to all my property managers and all my facilities that we maintain a couple of years back. And they're all over. I mean, they're on the east side. I mean, there's some of them are like, you know, 45 minutes from my office. So I don't get out to the offices that much. So I went out, took cookies out. A couple months later, I had to go back to this one property management office. And I went in, and I walked in, and the girl was sitting there, and I said, hi, I'm Steve. She goes, I know who you are. You're the guy who brought the cookies. So, you know, they remember you then. Now they got a face. Hey, that's that cool guy that brought the cookies. You know what? He can't be half bad. He brought us cookies. So take lunch, you know. Do something to make that connection. If you're in the area, you know, grab something from Panera's or whatever you have in your market and stop in and drop it off for them. This one, if you're smaller, it's hard. If you're bigger, you probably already got it, but a director of first impressions, does someone answer the phone at your office, or is it going into voicemail all the time? You know, I get a lot of people that say, wow, you know, you have a live person answering your phone. You know, we still in our industry do have some of that where people don't have I have a secretary or an office manager, she answers the phone, and we answer it the same it'll be, let's see, it's morning, so if you call there right now, it's good morning Southwest Landscape Management, this is Mary Jo. Well, it's Saturday, so she's not in today. But generally, that's how everybody answers the phone the same at my place. We don't answer at Southwest. You know, we have a certain way of answering the phone so that they have that experience. So someone new calling in is going to go, wow. You know, instead of, you know, you get those, have you ever called those places and they sound like they're mad to talk to you? Yeah, like you're bothering, you're like getting in their way of their video games or something. You know, it's like, why are you so cranky? Why don't you put some, who hires someone and then puts them on that job to answer that phone if they're not going to be happy? Get a mentor to help you with your weaknesses. Again, overall experience. Where are you weak? Are you weak with the numbers? Are you a good ops guy? Are you a good salesman? And where do you want to be? You know, where do you want to be as an owner or manager? Do you want to be the chief salesman, or do you just want to be the main operations guy? Do you want to still be the guy in the plow? If you're weak in an area, then find a mentor. They're out there who can help you. And I'll tell you a quick story about my sales mentor, because this was probably about 8 or 9 years ago, I was not doing very well in sales. And I knew 3 friends of mine that were in sales. They were awesome. These guys were, you know, had nice houses and everything, and they were very successful. So I picked one of them. I kind of thought about it for a while, and I picked one of them, and I called him up, and I was kind of nervous because, you know, I had known this guy my whole life. And I said, would you mind being my sales mentor? I'm really struggling. And he thought about it, and he's like, yeah, that would be cool. I think he was excited, actually. So we went to lunch. Long story short, I learned so much about sales from this guy. It's absolutely incredible. To this day, we still meet like every couple months for lunch. We don't always talk about sales anymore because we've kind of been through that. But I also learned, which is really, really interesting, he's a fabric salesman. And he is the #1 fabric salesman in the country. I would have never known that if I never asked him. And you're sitting here going, well, how much fabric can you sell? You should see his house. I mean, unbelievable. He is so good. He lives in Cleveland. His boss, who owns the company, is down in Texas. And this was a couple years ago, and his boss called him up and said, hey, I want you to fly down to Texas, bring your wife. So he came down, and the boss took him around, had him at his house. And he said, Mark, you know, you're my #1 salesman by $1 million. Their second salesman under him is $1 million under him. He said, I want you to take your wife and go anywhere in the world, stay at any hotel you want for 2 weeks and send me the bill. That's how good he is. So do you think I learned something from him? I mean, I learned a lot from this guy. And just somebody I know. And it doesn't cost me a lunch. Now, he doesn't charge me for it. There's a difference between a mentor and a consultant. The consultant's going to charge you. A mentor's going to... Did you have a question? Oh, okay. So think about that. You probably know somebody in your life that can help you in whatever. Maybe it's not sales, maybe it's something else. The open house, if you have a facility or a nice facility, it's a nice way to bring people in. We happen to have a pretty nice facility, so it doesn't cost a lot. You can get pizza and you can get some snacks and things like that. And just invite, I invited all my customers a couple years ago. I only had like 15 show up, but the 15 that showed up really had a good experience. About 2 months ago, we just had the local Chamber of Commerce. We had a business after hours at our place. We just had pizza, pop. We didn't buy any alcohol or anything because we didn't want liabilities. And they came in, and you know what the thing is when these people come in, a lot of time they think we're working out of like a shack somewhere. So when they see our facility and how nice it is, you know, and that we have a big conference room and we have offices, and they always say, wow, I never thought a landscape company would look like this or a snowplow company would look like this. And I know some, you know, believe me, we were in a barn for 9 years, so I'm not saying we've always had this, because we haven't. We had a barn without any, I mean, it had electricity and that was it. Yes?
Some comments that we've gotten, we have a really nice facility. Some people say that if you bring them in, then they're going to think that they're paying.
I've heard that, yeah. I don't, you know, I've heard a couple comments like that over the years. I know, it's a catch-22. I think overall, though, it makes them feel comfortable that they have a good company that's hey, we're permanent, we're not going anywhere. This is our home base, you know, this is where we work out of. So we've had success with it. A lot of times, it's this one, I think we had like 30 people. So it varies too, depending on the time of year, and yes?
Well, I think as a rule, people like to deal with successful people. So I think there's the flip side of that.
Yeah, I think so too. You know, they're seeing that you're a real operation. You know, and they can see all your equipment, because a lot of times they only see one truck or you know, a couple trucks. But when they go back and see, hey, look at all the stuff they have. Wow, they really have a lot. I thought they only had one truck. You know, so they go back there and they look and they can see everything that you have. Some final thoughts. I don't know what time it is here. Let's see, where are we? 22, so we're good. I put together, this is some random stuff, some frequently asked questions for my foreman. You know how you go to a website and you can find frequently asked questions? Well, a lot of the foremen now are younger like that, so I put together a little FAQ for them. How do you deal with a disgruntled homeowner? What's our policy for dealing with an employee that's giving you a hard time? So that they know they have that, you can write that employee up if he's giving you a hard time. It's all in our employees manual, but I put it and condensed it, and I tell them to keep it with them. They probably don't, but at least they've read it and they know, hey, this is how we deal with certain situations. So they're not always calling me, asking me, hey, you know, how do I deal with this or what? The idea is to let these guys own their work. So the FAQs, they're kind of a cool idea if you can get them, actually get the employees to read them. Read a great business book or listen to a CD. I'm always doing that. I like to advocate that because I think our professionalism in this industry has gone way up, and I just think it's great that we continue to learn and do things like this. This is a very good seminar, and doing things like this because you're here. I mean, you're obviously interested in learning and getting better. Study great businesses and leaders and see what makes them tick. I love to read books about successful business people like Donald Trump or, you know, Richard Branson, some of these Silicon Valley guys, some of the stuff they've done. I mean, it's amazing. So you can learn a little bit from that and try and integrate it into your company. And then a quick review, 3 types of property managers. We have the HOA property management company and the national companies. Each has its own type of relationship, personal business and impersonal business. So, and opportunities for bidding vary depending on which type of property manager you're dealing with. So, just some things to review there. And then, again, what makes them tick? You got to have good communication, relationships, excellent service, and a competitive price. And be the safe bet. You know, try to figure out how you can be the guy that they're going to call. So does anybody have questions? I think that's it. Sure.
We have in the past strictly done industrial type properties. This season we're doing our first HOA. And in my opinion, we've done everything right. We've done everything that we said we would do. But there is one tenant in the HOA that keeps calling the property manager that's not on site and basically telling him lies that we haven't fertilized, we haven't aerated, we haven't done these things, and we have. The other day I got a call from the property manager and he was pretty pissed off. So, you know, are you guys doing your job or not? And we are. I've already sent them pictures, but they don't show fertilizer on the ground.
I know.
So I was wondering how you handle that to keep a good relationship.
If it was me, I would probably call up the property manager and say, let's go out there and meet Mrs. Jones, whoever's a complaining lady. Let's go over to her house and let's talk to her and find out what her problem is. You know, because I know that's a painful thing to do, but you might actually find out that there's something bugging this person, or either that they have nothing better to do with their life, but you know, there's something bothering them, and you got to get to the bottom of what it is. And if you go out there with the property manager and say, hey, I want to make it, you're showing the property manager you're taking a major interest in this. Hey, I'm willing to get out of my, get in my car, drive over there, meet you and her, and let's talk this thing through and find out what's going on. And hopefully that'll alleviate some of the problem. sometimes you just can't make some people happy. But the fact that she's calling up saying that you're not doing things, there's something there that maybe her brother was the last contractor or something.
Well, you know, she is the kind of person, in my opinion, that is just looking for things to complain about. I mean, she admitted to me that she was proud to be the one that caused a lot of problems. The previous season between the property manager and the landscape company that had it before us. So, in my opinion, they should know that she, you know, is a problem.
Communication too. Communication with the property manager about your tasks that are before they happen. Sometimes a simple email or a phone call saying, we're going to be trimming the bushes this week. We're going to start in this area and finish up there at a certain time. So when that phone call comes in from that complaint, you know, from the crazy, they have the answer. They know that you're already there.
I've done that, and then I get the phone call. So, did you do it or not?
Is she,
Well, you know, it's a pain in the ass to follow up and say it's been done before that call comes in.
is she calling different people at the property, or does she have one contact that she calls up?
She has the main property manager that she talks to.
Okay. So why is he buying it?
Last time it was so bad, actually, the main property manager I deal with was on vacation. And so he has a guy filling it.
I wonder why he's buying it since he already went through it last year with her. You know, I mean, obviously she said that she was proud that she was making all these headaches. You think he would know, you know, that, hey, this person's a pain. Sometimes property managers tell me, hey, Steve, this lady's a pain in the butt, man. So she's going to call about every little thing. Did you have a question or comment?
Comment on that. We have a property that has one guy. It's probably, I don't know, maybe 20. It's a cul-de-sac. You know, 20 unit property, and there is one tenant just like that. Oh, you killed my tomato plants, this, that, or the other. And we're actually on board with the property manager there, and she knows everything. He's a pain in the ass all the time. So we went over everything with her, and we actually came to an agreement. You know what? We'll stay out of his courtyard. We can do all that. You know, we'll do the common areas, and that's it. And it seems to work out very well. We've had contract for 5 years now.
Yeah, it's, how long have you been working with that particular property manager?
Just this season, well, we started with snow on some other properties this last winter, and then we gave us some landscape.
It might take some time for them to, you know, as long as you're doing a great job and hopefully some other people are saying how good you're doing and they'll negate what she's saying. But, you know, going out there is not a bad idea. Did you have a question? Or comment?
If this property manager's been dealing with her for several years with other companies, this lady probably has a history, and probably all the people in the association know that she's a complainer. So it's probably not going to go too far, but I would certainly meet with her.
You know, yeah, like we've met with her. We've had to have a supervisor or myself go out to her place every week since we started.
It's amazing. Yeah, and sometimes it's just like you massage those relationships. I guess that's where you have to ask yourself, is this ultimately going to be a thorn in my side or not? I tend to have a lot of patience, so I deal with a lot of that junk. Even my my office manager, she tells me, I don't know how you do it sometimes. I'll keep trying. If I know that it's a good property and that property manager's a decent guy and he's not throwing me under the bus and he's a good person just trying to do a good job, I will try to go out there and just continue to work on it. Did you have a question?
Something that we've learned is you gotta learn when to fire.
Yes.
If they're consuming way too much of your maintenance time, just tumbles.
Yeah, you got to know when to fire. Sometimes you got to fire the customer. I mean, we don't like to do that. Nobody likes to do it, but sometimes you're better off if you don't work with some. You know, I had a property management company several years ago that we were plowing snow for them, and they weren't paying their, and this was way before we started getting into snow more seriously, and they just weren't paying their bills. So finally, a storm was coming, and we called them up and said, hey, we're not going to come out. Well, this guy's like mother effing us and everything else on the phone. Yep. But you know what? His buddy came out and dropped off a check at our office. And I said, I will never work with them again because they don't respect us at all. I mean, we're not in this business to be whipping people, you know. I mean, if somebody's treating us like garbage, you're right, you have to fire them, you know, and there's no question there are bad people out there. I mean, we've all dealt with them, but I'd say that's a small percentage, you know, compared to what's really out there. Any other questions? Nope. All right, well, thank you. Appreciate it.